It's not like some of the older, celebrities where, you got your what do they call it? Your pusher, your supplier, in the parking lot. It's not like
Yeah,
that.
there's a room behind the dining room set.
Right. Behind the cafeteria of Eastland,
Right.
there's our pusher.
He hangs out until Mrs. Garrett
Right.
leaves.
Right.
I'm so happy to see you.
I'm so happy to see you.
Thanks for coming back.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
So we just figured out it was 2017.
It was, yes.
So that's almost 7 years ago.
Oh my gosh. Time, it waits for no one.
No, it doesn't.
Not at all.
And you've been busy.
Thankfully, yes.
Yeah. I mean, you're always busy, it seems. So tell me about this time in your life. What's going on? How do you feel? We're always changing, right? We're always evolving.
Yeah, constant evolution. And at this point, I'm also in what I've been calling my refresh illusion. And so I've been evolving, but with a great deal more intention in wellness, in just kind of softening the edges of the focus of Kim. You know what I mean? And just making that more of a moment in my life. And what does that mean? That means I do things that I want to do. Sometimes we get into these pockets, these routines of I need to do this, I need to do this, I have to do this, I have to do that. And so shifting that perspective to I get to do this, even if it's work and you do need it, everybody needs their paper, but you get to do this, you get to do that. And so for me, it's being able to have that perspective, but also finding those moments of, okay, well, don't forget about Kim.
Okay.
In it all.
Yeah.
So that's where I am. That's kind of the core tenet of my refresh-olution and my evolution at this stage. Loving my work. I'm so excited about my work. Our new episodes of the Upshaws just dropped. And doing more as a storyteller and as a creative. So it's good now.
Yeah. It seems like it's good.
Yeah.
I can tell that it's good. So what was it that led you to realize, I need to actually focus on Kim. I need to soften those edges.
Yeah.
And I need to think about wellness. So was there an event or an incident?
Well, I think everyone had some version of an awakening, so to speak, when a pandemic happened and when the pandemic hit, because none of us had ever been there before, and what does that mean? And you start to look at things like your mortality, you start to look at health and wellness, you start to look at you kind of macro and micro looking at everything. So from the big picture, how do I take better care of myself, or having more of an awareness of space and people and, all the things that became new norms at this point. And then when I would kind of micro analyze, it then became, well, what else can I do for me? So it was swimming more, it was walking more, it was relaxing more, discovering meditation and breath work, and just kind of adding to my toolbox of what kinds of things I could use to take care of myself. And honestly, I saw something on IG that said you can't pour from an empty cup. And as a purveyor of coffee and tea, I thought, well, yeah, I got to really embrace that. And so I was realizing that my cup would get empty quicker. I was realizing that I kept trying to pour from an empty cup. And just you have to, restock for yourself. You've got to you've got to do that for yourself. And then comes that marvelous moment of, wow, it doesn't take away from the time I spend with the kids or my work or my this or my family, my village, it actually enhances that time because I'm in what feels like a better space for that.
Could not agree with that more, first of all, because I love my kids more than anything. But like when I have nothing else going on, it does not make me feel that good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you need more. And I know that sometimes when I'm busier, I can't be there 100% for everybody else, but I'm so much happier and I feel like they're getting a better version of me.
Yeah.
Everybody's getting a better version of me. And then they're also seeing like, oh, you can do all these things and not just sacrifice yourself for everybody else.
Yeah.
It's a good example for everybody.
It was like a new version of surrender. And it's a process for sure.
Yeah.
But it was, and it still is, just glorious.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Okay, so two things. A, that could be a slogan for your coffee company. Right? You can't pour from an empty cup.
I know, but I think
or would it be
has
stealing
that.
from somebody? Would it be a trademark issue? Okay, I have to get rid of this pillow now. I'm realizing it's too big. Okay. All right. Can somebody... Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, I have to lean back.
Got it.
I've been trying, in the years that I've been doing the show, I realize you have to sit up and posture matters. But at the same time, when I'm in a good conversation, I do kind of like to just lean back. Anyway, okay, that was A. And then B was, why was your cup empty? Like, what was up? Were you doing too many things or were you just depressed or what?
No, not depressed. Sometimes I'm a doer and I'm a multitasker. So sometimes I just get to doing. And that's my sweet spot. That's my groove. That's my lane. And so when I am doing, a lot of times you don't even realize that your cup is empty, until you just realize, oh my God, I'm tired.
Yeah.
Or you realize, wow, I didn't even know that I needed to do something for myself. And so sometimes it's just, little things. But sometimes the shift for me was, I think that I kept doing things that were goal oriented or result oriented as opposed to lifestyle, making the lifestyle the goal. And so realizing that it's ongoing, it's a movement, not just a moment. It's got some legs to it. There's some eternity, even in this life now for me. So I feel like those were the kinds of things that I was looking at, making some shifting. Yeah.
So are you a goal setter by nature? Like, have you set a lot of goals for yourself in life?
Well, I think because I've been working since I was 7, so I'm. she said,
small facts.
Oh, right. So I think that there's this sense of I'm used to, you start something, then you do something, then you complete it.
Okay.
So I feel like just kind of when you have work and work ethic as a part of your DNA, practically. There's a certain aspect that's just kind of innately in you in terms of either setting a goal or having a routine and things like that. And I love that. There's no complaining at all about that, about my life, my upbringing, my childhood. I still totally feel like I had a wonderful childhood. Okay. But I love that is part of my wiring and the mechanics, the mechanisms in me. So I think I've been more results oriented, especially as an adult, because there was that sense of, well, I know I don't want to be a has-been at 18. Well, I know I don't want to be a child star statistic or a former child star statistic. And so I set certain goals of, okay, well, keep working. And what does that look like, in an industry where talent isn't always the order of the day.
Right.
And being able to make yourself multifaceted, being able to make yourself invaluable, indispensable. Everybody can be replaced, so I don't really believe in irreplaceable. But those were the types of goals that I would set. and
so those were big goals.
they are, and they were, and no regrets at all, but I was perfectly imbalanced. I was perfectly imperfect in all of that, because that became, so much of who I am. And then when you factor in family and children and raising children and still doing your career and all of that, I love every moment of it. And I went through a small phase in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s, where I was like, okay, I've had me time. I'm good. I know me. Yeah, I love me. I'm good. And I didn't realize that that's kind of an ongoing need, that idea of me time. And so I had to kind of re-engage in that mindset. I'm still not there yet, quite honestly.
Okay, I appreciate the honesty.
Oh my God, not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all.
But it's a work in progress.
Yes, that aspect, total work in progress. Because I'm like, all right, I had a few hours. Good, right. I'm good. I went to the movies, or I listened to an audiobook. Yeah, okay. Let's go.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, it's like, if you weren't like that, you wouldn't have built the life that you built for yourself.
Yeah.
So it's like, right. I mean, there are drawbacks, I guess, of everything.
It's an ebb and flow. I'm because drawbacks almost smacks to me of like a regret or something is missing. So I feel like it's an ebb and flow. Again, perfectly imperfect and imbalanced was my balance,
Yeah.
And realizing, I think one of the biggest revelations for me, honestly, was balance does not mean 50-50 in any, in anything that you're doing. It can be 90-10. It can be, as long as the numbers make sense to you in that moment, go ahead, and I realized that balance is ever changing every second. I'm always thinking of that person that walks that wire rope across, two buildings in New York or something.
The Twin Towers.
That
guy.
And it's like you are always shifting your balance to stay balanced.
Yeah.
And I find that fascinating, because I feel like that's so much of how I live my life, is making adjustments in real time, shifting my energies and my weight and things like that, so that I'm always on that tightrope.
Yeah, right, because you don't want to fall down. But
no, that's not an option.
And then there's wind coming, but you have
right?
your pole, right? So you have your pole
exactly.
to help you balance.
Exactly. And what are you holding
feet.
on to?
Yeah.
Because are you holding on to your faith? Are you holding on to your breath work? Are you holding on to something that an inspiration you got off of IG? Are you holding on to scripture? Are you holding on to meditation? Are you, you have all these things that you can hold on to, just like they hold on to that pole to help with the balance.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what was going on in the 90s that you're like, oh, I need me time? What exactly were we talking about?
I got out of college. I wasn't working at the time. And just, when you're literally, after you get out of school or you get out of that, that routine, and you feel like you're armed with, this sense of either purpose or inspiration, and you're ready to go, and you got nowhere to go. And it's like, well, okay.
That's hard.
And, looking at where I had been, Facts of Life and commercials and TV movies and plays and all sorts of things. And just kind of in that what next mode. And so I was quiet for a little bit. I was exploring. I still continued to learn. So even though I had my degree, I still took courses at like AFI or, places like that. And I was living by myself. I wasn't in the dorms or with my college roommate. And it was just that sense of, okay, I'm good. I'm me.
Right.
And then I thought, okay, well, that was great. I'm glad I had that. And now here we go.
Yeah.
Let's go life.
Well, it helps you decide what you want for yourself. Sometimes when you go to something that you think you want for yourself, and you're like, oh, maybe that's not for me, but I had to go there.
I had an internship at a news station.
You did?
Yes, because I double majored when I was at Pepperdine. I double majored in
you went to
broadcast.
Pepperdine?
Yeah.
Oh, nice
and
campus,
so
by the
it's
way.
Gorgeous. And so I majored in broadcast journalism and TV and film production. And so as a part of the major, you have to do an internship at a local news station. And so I was interning, and you had to go and do ride-alongs with the reporters. And I was in hard news and, covering, I mean, this is in LA in the late 80s, early 90s. So there's murder, there's suicide, there's gang violence, there's drugs, there's, just all of this and the political climate, and just there was all of this. And I just thought, like you just said, sometimes you have to experience something to know that's not for me. That was one of them. That's not for me.
It's like, it's good it was an internship. That's perfect.
Absolutely. No, and that's why you have them. Exactly. Right. Sure. You're able to explore.
I feel like there should be internships all the time, beginning from like when you're young and in high school, because try all the things.
Yeah. You don't know. Yeah.
But that must
it's
be
great
wild.
exposure. It's great exposure. But it was definitely an eye-opening experience, to say the least. And I'm always telling my friends who are journalists, I'm like, I have so much respect for you guys, because I know what that is, and
to see it right up like that must have been weird too. Because so you were working with the reporters, you were like on the street, going in one of these vans or whatever.
Yep.
Right to the incident.
Oh yeah.
So what did you do? But then what did that make you decide that you wanted to do instead afterwards?
Well, it gave me a great skill set. Journalism gave me a great skill set for having conversations.
Yes.
It gave me a great skill set in terms of knowing how to edit, and just have other things to talk about other than acting. But at the end of the day, it was definitively a reminder of, yes, I do still want to act. Yes, I still want to explore being a director and a writer and a producer. I don't even mind broadcast journalism, maybe not, but something in that wheelhouse will eventually come to pass.
Yeah. See, so it not only told you what you don't want to do, but it did give you some experience, but it gave you some inklings of what you might be open to later.
Sure. And it gives you skill sets.
Yeah, for
exactly.
sure.
That even if you don't use it in that thing, you can use it in other spaces. So yeah.
So, okay, so you said you started when you were 7. That was a commercial, right?
Yep. Mrs. Butterworth syrup.
That's right. Okay. That was a good start for sure. Oh, by the way, do you still talk to Todd Bridges? I meant to tell you this before.
Yes, I do.
Because I'm in touch with him too. He was on my show a couple of times. I actually have a funny story. This is totally off topic, but I'll tell you the story anyway. So he was on my show during the pandemic. So it was like 2020.
Yeah.
And everything was Zoom. So, and everybody was home, like we were saying. So I was at home, had my camera all set up, talking to Todd. Suddenly I see him on my computer and he's laughing. He's like, "Who's that behind you?" And I look back and it was my son, came down the stairs in his underwear. Having no idea.
No idea. That's awesome.
We cracked up. It was so funny. And I was like, I told my son, I was like, we have to put this in.
Yeah.
He's like, no, if you do, I'll kill you. I'll die. So we didn't put it in. But
that's funny.
But yes. So I just wanted to mention him because I know that you guys do. You're friendly.
We have been friends. Oh my gosh, since I was. Well, I mean, certainly since before Facts of Life and Diff'rent Strokes. People forget that Todd was a wonderful character named Loomis on a show called Fish. Fish was a spinoff for Abe Vigoda from the Barney Miller Show. And so it's just one of those, all these, connect the dots moments. So he was on Fish, and I was on a show called Baby I'm Back. Those were actually our first TV series. Now, Todd had done some guest appearances. He was on, I think, Little House on the Prairie or The Waltons.
Yes.
Yeah.
By the way, have you ever seen a clip of him from Little House on the Prairie?
Yeah, that afro is wicked.
But his
and
acting
his dusty suspenders and all of that. Yeah, people, I think they still sleep on Todd's skill set. And I know that they did back in the day.
Okay, can we talk about that? They still sleep
Sure.
on Okay, tell me about that.
It was really nothing to talk about because there's nothing that has happened. Our last text a couple of weeks ago, and he said, I'm ready to get back to work. And I was like, that's a great sentiment and statement. Put that out there, and put that energy out there. Because Todd has been a really strong actor for a long time. And, it's even before there were so many platforms, even before there was so much content and access to content, there were still a lot of people. I mean, the Screen Actors Guild is one of the most massive unions because there's so many of us out there trying to get a job or a piece of a job. And so, when you then have a certain type of character that you've played, or you're a part of the fabric of pop culture in a certain way, and then our industry, for it to be so creative, can have some of the most tunnel vision folks ever to run it. And so, it's like people can't see past that one thing that, quote unquote, made you, or that was a part of your major, part of your fame. But Todd is it's going to be interesting, I think, to see what happens for him. To me, sometimes he's one of those guys that his next wave of success will come now that he's gotten a little bit older, and we all still look the same.
Yeah.
But he's got. It's almost like when Quentin Tarantino went and got John Travolta and Sam Jackson.
Right.
You know what I mean? And you have that type of storyteller that's like, oh my gosh, I know who you are, and I want you for this now.
Totally. It's somebody
and I
who
feel
has
like
vision.
Yeah, and I feel like that's going to really be a big part of what happens next for Todd in his career.
Well, I hope that's true. I would love to see him come back to something.
I know, yeah.
And I remember seeing that, like the Little House on the Prairie, that clip, and he was little, and it was like a very emotional, moving experience. It is frustrating when you see people who you can just see their talent like jump off the screen.
Yeah,
and it's like, well, why am I not seeing them everywhere?
I started realizing there's a difference between, like, nowadays everything is about, you see me, thank you for seeing me, I feel seen. And there's a difference between feeling seen and feeling picked. And I feel like people started cross-connecting the two, and they're very, very separate and different, because there are brands or entities that you can see, doesn't mean you're picking them. And so when you are seen and picked,
right,
that's on some other level.
Right. So how do you feel about your experiences with being seen versus being picked, or seen and picked?
Yeah, I feel like I'm coming into a new level, quite honestly, a new phase of being picked. It's still very I don't know if strategic is the right word. It's strategic on my part in terms of when I am picked, if I allow myself to be picked in that moment, if the project is right or if it's not right or something like that. But there is still a lot of, let me change the analogy. I feel like when people talk about, we have a seat at the table, my journey feels like, and anybody can refute it, but you can't refute my feelings. But my journey feels like, for a great deal of my journey, I had to build my own table and chairs. I had to create a vibe to make it the room where it happens, for people to go, oh, well, let me go in this room. And I feel like a lot of people, not just women, not just Black people, just humanity. I feel like there's a big ass part of humanity that feels like that. That's like, I had to do this shit by myself, or have very strategic help here and there, or some people may say luck or blessings or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, there still is that sense of, oh my God, I feel like I'm pushing a piano up a hill still.
Right. Right. So you don't think it's you specifically. You think most people feel like that.
Yeah, I do. And I think that that's kind of the relatability factor. And not to take away from the people who may not feel like that. You just walk a different walk and, go ahead on with your bad self.
Right. I think that's true. That's a lot of people struggle, and it may look really easy on the outside, especially for people who, like, you've pushed a piano up a hill, but you have a lot to show for it, but nobody sees the action of pushing it up a hill.
Yeah.
They only see the result of it.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it looks a little bit, it's skewed from what actually happened.
Sure.
But I think that's true. But okay, so you said something about, people can refute it if they want to, but how can anybody refute your experiences?
Well, they can, because people can get lippy, and now that everybody has a microphone, then it's out there for the taking. So I just try to thwart it and head it off at the right out the gate.
So are we talking about just like people out in the world, like commenting and stuff? Or are we talking about people within your world?
Oh no, just the regular world.
People?
Yeah, the regular world. And I think because, when we first met, and I was on the press tour for my autobiography, the intro, so to speak, to my autobiography is an excerpt, a quote from a Langston Hughes poem. And it says, "Well, son, I'll tell you, life for me ain't been no crystal stairs." And I started it that way because I think people look at my career and, to a certain extent, my life, and think, "Oh, she ain't been through nothing."
That's exactly right. That's it. And people, when they meet you, probably think that too.
Yeah.
Like you must come upon that.
Absolutely. So if the idea of the effort makes, if my efforts seem effortless, then I guess good on me.
I guess, yeah. You know what? I would say good on you, probably. I mean,
because
right?
I don't look toe up and worn out and busted like, ooh, shit, the struggle is real. I don't look all crazy like that. But that doesn't mean, and I it's funny when people say, you've been a part of the culture for so long, and we've never read anything, and you've never had anything bad happen to you. It doesn't mean that it didn't happen. It doesn't mean that I haven't been through some things.
What are some of the things that people don't know about you that you've been through?
I'm very sensitive. I've learned to build up a thick skin over time, but I think in a lot of it makes me a very good actor. It makes me a very good director. But in humanity speak, I'm sensitive. I'm coming into a new phase of exploration and discovery, the adventure that I want out of life and in life, and discovery and all of that. So I think people don't know those things about me. I don't think that people really know my work ethic, because I'm incredibly passionate about the details, and I think a lot of times that separates the tares and the wheat. I think that really does separate, the level of either your work, your storytelling in terms of what I do. But I mean, in anything, in my parenting, in every aspect of my life, I'm incredibly detail oriented. And it can be, I'm not compulsive about it, and I'm not in a disorder type of state, but I wear that badge proudly, because I know the details make the difference. The details absolutely make the difference in anything that I do, in any part of life. I think that.
So what does that look like as a parent?
Well, always wanted to make sure that my kids are prepared, even when, it's like whenever they would start the first day of school, the night before, I'm always like, do they have everything? Do they have this? Do they have that? Did I get everything off the list? And, all those things. But now it's it's making sure that they feel heard. It's making sure that they know their worth and their value. It's making sure that they are. Here's a detail. I stopped saying you good, because I felt like it sets them up to say, you can't say anything else, but yes, exactly, right. As opposed to how are you? How are you? Sometimes I say, how's your cup? And now the 10-year-olds will come up to me, hey, Mom, how's your cup?
That's a great, I like that. And it's like between you and them, and it means something.
It does mean something. And kids nowadays, I think that is really important, and again, in my work in the wellness space, the details are very important, when I'm putting together and curating all the experiences at the retreats and what's going on our social media and what's going on in our on our website and now in our Spotify channel and all these spaces. It's like, people see it lands, when we're at the Upshaws. People see those details and the way that they watch our show. Oh my goodness. Everybody's already like, I'm already done with all the new episodes. And so they go back and watch again and they binge us and they keep watching us. And so now you're at the point where now you see those details and, oh, I missed that before. Oh, I didn't notice that. And it's great. I just noticed a detail on the Upshaws and I'm on the I'm a producer. Notice? I noticed when our opening title card happens, right, and it says the Upshaws and all the letters come down, I didn't realize that when the letters land on that white surface, that it actually breaks that surface up. It's like breaking the ground up a bit. And so when we went to work this season, Netflix has our logo painted on the building, the soundstage. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so when I saw it huge like that, that's when I first noticed how where the letters and the surface connect, it's like the ground has been broken. And I thought, wow, to me, I'm taking that as the Upshaws make impact. The Upshaws are groundbreaking. And even if nobody else gets it like that, I don't care. I do.
Totally.
And that helps me, in my work as, part of the Upshaws family.
Yeah. And they did it somebody did that for a reason.
Yes.
That was that was
intentional.
Absolutely.
Intentional act. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that too, you can take that with you also.
Yeah.
Okay. So there are some of the details. So and I want to talk about your wellness projects too in a minute, but let's stick with the Upshaws for now.
Yes.
So how else does the attention to detail? So you're a producer on the Upshaws as well as being the lead actor or one of the leads. And so how active are you? Like, what are you doing if you're into the details?
Yeah.
You have that work ethic. So what does that look like on set? And offset.
It can look like a few things. Here's an example. So I was directing our first episode of this new batch of episodes that we're currently filming.
Right, which is called
It's called season 4. Okay. But don't get me past that.
Okay.
It's called season 4. And so I was directing the first episode of the Upshaws, and we were in one of our sets, which is a gym. And so I said, I'd like to have this lady walking by as this guy is saying this line. I said, okay. And so I had set all the shots and everything, and I was in the scene as well. So I have, great support with our cast and crew. So I have what we call our second team or our stand-in. So she was working. I went and, set everything, camera shots, actors, all the blocking, background with everybody. And so when I plugged myself in as actor and we start filming, cameras are rolling, everything is going well, I'm in the scene. And, as the actor, you're like, be very present, stay with who you're acting with. But I see the lady that I had doing one thing, then she came back around and did something else. And I was like, excuse me, weren't you just there? That's not going to work, guys. And everybody was like, how did you even see that?
Right.
How did you even notice that?
That's a perfect example.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where it's I don't know.
That's just your nature.
It's how I'm wired.
It's how you're wired. You're keeping all the things. You're looking at all the things. I imagine you can't be a good director. Oh, maybe you can. I'm not going to say that's probably a sweeping statement, but that's one of the things that would make you a successful director too.
Yes, very much so. Very much so is the details to the characters, your set. I love working with all the department heads so that, everybody can shine, first of all.
Yeah.
There's very few new people in what we do. That's not to say there aren't new storytellers. There totally are. But in a lot of the areas of crew members, department heads, and things like that, it's people who've been doing this for a very long time. So it's not so much about telling them what to do at this point in any of our careers. I look at it more as, how do I inspire them to show up in a new way?
Okay. Got it.
That's to me a detail. So as opposed to saying to, your set designer or, well, we have a gym here, or we have this restaurant, or we have this. They know that. They read the script. But now it becomes, oh, wow, I see what you're doing here. So now let me adjust my shots so that now I can showcase this moment or give this one an entrance because look at this great costume that our wardrobe designer did, or, things like that. So it's different things that that come into play, certain lighting. That's beautiful. Here's another one. Just yesterday, we were doing a restaurant scene. And two people were sitting at the table. And, in television, when it's like that multi-camera, where it's not like a film or single camera where you can be all up in a location, you're on a soundstage with basically 3 walls, right? And then the 4th wall is where the cameras are. And so the table, when you're in a restaurant scene, is usually close to the cameras so that nobody's in the way and blocking it. And I just said, you know what, guys, right in here. Now, I'm not even directing. This is producer Kim now going, and the lighting was beautiful. Our DP Chuck, he does, and his team does such a great job. And I said, this area in front of their table just looks really bare. Can we slide in just maybe a little credenza or a little piece? And it's called foreground. And it's just enough to give you some visual texture, but it's not blocking the actors. It's not blocking the movement. It's not distracting, but it's just enough to give you that extra layer, extra detail.
I am seeing that. I'm getting such a clear picture of you from the details.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
And you're also sharing the details too, which is another illustration of
absolutely.
But right, so
here's the last one.
Okay, go.
Here's the last one.
Yeah.
So I'll show you now. So these are my Upshaws braids, is what I call them.
They look great.
So thank you. And that's another conversation of how did Regina Upshaws have braids all this time. But for the last 3 seasons, she's just done the individual braids. And we've been flexible with them, ponytails, little braid styles, whatever. But I said, the kids are a little older. She's doing more at work, but she's not in that breakneck lifestyle that she was in. So now let's change it up. So now in this part right in here, we do designs. We do either these kinds of braids. We add a little texture with some accessories. And I did that because, again, details. This is where she is now, where she has a bit more time to take for herself.
That's so true.
And so in that little detail, people realize that, oh, wow, she's not just doing the usual, she's doing something that's a little bit different.
Which is nice, too, because I think in a lot of, it's like we were talking about, not the open minds of the industry. So they like to do what has already been proven to work, right? Yeah. So it would be easy to be like, oh, the audience really likes her hair like this. So why would we change it? But instead, you're like, you know what? I think we need to reflect the reality of her situation, which, right, those details matter.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. I'm definitely getting that picture of you.
Yeah.
You have a lot, but that's a lot to keep in your brain at one time.
It is. So that's why some people choose not to talk to me unless I'm caffeinated.
So the caffeine helps you keep it all up there.
That's why I own a coffee company.
Right. Is that why? So really, why did you get into the coffee company?
No, I knew going back to that period of time, right around 1990, 91, pre-living single. but post-college. I hadn't really gotten into doing all the guest appearances that kind of ramped me up into the next career move, which was living single, right? So the guest appearance on Fresh Prince, on Martin. I did some plays and movies, stuff like that. So I was just kind of in that kind of, I don't like to say do nothing, but I was in that limbo, post-college limbo. And so I was doing a lot of reading. I love to read. I think it's another thing people don't know about me. I love to read. And so I was reading.
They would also wonder where you would find the time to read, but what do you do it at night or something?
Yes, I do it at night. I either read my ebooks or audiobooks. But I love pages and the written word and seeing it as well. So I actually love books, the hard copies. But anyway, I was reading this book and it was giving a lot of really great inspiration on being an entrepreneur. And at the time, Black Enterprise was like the magazine for Black people who were interested in, if nowadays we say that's the side hustle, right? And growing that into a business and being an entrepreneur. And I just felt like I want to be an entrepreneur. And again, going back to when I was a kid, I kept thinking, I don't want to be a has-been. I don't want to be a statistic. I owe my village a lot more. And so I knew that I wanted to always have a backup plan in case I didn't work as an actor, in case I went through these funky phases of, you have a name, but you're not the right look, or we're looking for this, or you're not the it girl right now. We're just all the stuff in our industry. And so I knew that I needed to have that backup plan, falling back on something. I just didn't know what. And then when I started doing Living Single, I would visit these really cool coffee houses down on the street out here called Melrose. And even, in Manhattan, down in the Village and all that. I mean, it's just coffee houses were always just awesome. And as a New Yorker, you grow up, with the smells of coffee and chock full of nuts and all of that. And so,
Yeah, I know. I do.
And so I thought back to my childhood. When I wasn't doing Facts of Life, I was in regular elementary school, and our teacher in second and third grade, our teacher would read to us at Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory every day after school. Every day after lunch, she would read to us, and it was just so great to. She had this this tall thermos with the beige top. It was that brown plaid cylinder with the cup that was the top
thermos.
And, yes, and it was beige and brown, and the cup was beige. And she would pour this piping hot black coffee into that little cup and read Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And my desk was next to hers. I wasn't a bad kid. That's just how we were in alignment. And so I would smell that smell of coffee and be transported to this chocolate factory in this book. So now fast forward all these decades later, and I'm like, wow, coffee is really a passion of mine. I really love it. And I ended up crossing paths with people who had access to a coffee roaster who would do private labeling, but they didn't just slap your name on a label and there you go, you own a coffee line. You could come in and create your own blends, which is why I call it Signature Blends by KF, because I can go in and create my own flavors, my own roasts. And it's fascinating, and it's a sustainable business and an industry that is certainly not going anywhere but continues to grow and flourish. And it was something that I could also put my own spin on it. How do I do coffee? How do I sell coffee? How do I market? So it's something that's very sophisticated but playful. It's a luxury brand, but affordable certainly, and being able to create an experience, create a vibe for somebody. And I feel like every blend is like the characters that I create.
So interesting, right? So you're creating the vibe that you got when you were hearing the book being read to you. It was such a comforting situation, I'm sure, and just transporting.
Yeah.
I totally forgot my question. It was about the coffee. Okay, I'm gonna have to go back to that when I remember it. Okay, so
we also have tea.
Okay, but where can everybody find this coffee?
Signatureblends.kf.com. So we are an exclusive retail marketplace online. And so we have coffee and tea. We also have coffee-based face and body scrubs. And for the chefs out there, we also have delicious dry rubs.
Okay, just remember the question.
Yes.
You were doing this while you were on Living Single? What? This is good. And I'm not saying it because you must have been so busy, because that's obviously a given. But you were still worried about being a has-been and creating something for yourself separately when you were in the middle of this successful series.
Somewhat, yes. So the timeline in terms of when Signature Blends actually I gave birth to it was actually almost right when I met you, 2017.
Okay.
When I was doing Living Single, I was living near coffee house, and I would go to coffee houses, and I was old enough now to actually drink and enjoy coffee and have an awareness of it. And I had just had the seeds planted of, I do want to be an entrepreneur. So it was all these kinds of moments that kept sticking with me. But the actual company I didn't give birth to that until 2017.
Okay, got it. Okay, so and I want to go to the entrepreneur projects that you have now, because clearly you're still an entrepreneur. You still have these ideas. So we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
But so going back to just a couple of questions about, you really didn't want to be a has-been, and that has driven you, and that has driven you to a huge amount of success, even though it was pushing a piano up a mountain or a hill. So what planted that fear in your mind? Like, or not fear, but motivation that you didn't want to be a has-been. Where was there one incident?
It's the realization when I was very young that I was in a very unique club, let's call it, of child stars. And, child star, that moniker usually does not come with a lot of positivity. There's usually tragedy attached to it. There's usually some form of abuse that is connected with that type of lifestyle or job description. And I didn't want to have any of that be a part of my testimony.
So when you were young, you were able to see it like that?
Sure, absolutely. When I was young, when I was a kid and going on auditions and, doing the commercials and then the TV shows, of course I was aware of the little girl who was on Family Affair, right? Like, I remember the day that she died. And I saw it in a newspaper because I was waiting for my mom sitting in a bank, and it was on the table. And I was like, oh, Buffy's gone. You know?
Yeah, but that is powerful.
Yeah, very much so. You hear story, and I love like classic movies and classic TV shows. I've always loved all that. And so, that being said, I also love Hollywood history. And so you just kind of see all of that, and then as you are getting your comeuppance and you're at different events or interviews and things. And I did this roundtable discussion that Melissa Gilbert and Tony Dow from Leave It to Beaver, they produced this roundtable about child stars. And I was one of, if not the only Black female that was there. The Paul Peterson, I think is his name. He played the son on the Donna Reed show. And he has an organization that really works to protect not just the rights, but the kind of the heart and soul of child stars. Okay. Patty Duke was on there with us. And it was great because I know her children, Sean and Mac was on Facts of Life. And we were, just kind of talking about being child stars and former child stars. And some of the stories, again, because there were generations that were there that was represented. And so being a child star in the 40s or the 50s or the 60s, very different than, when I was coming up in the 80s. And then I was talking to the young girl who plays on the Upshaws. She plays our oldest daughter, and Kylie. And she and I were talking about how she's, now 18, but she started when she was 14, and how being a child star now is so different. And so it can be a great experience. It can be a very difficult experience because it's not the natural order of things. Children usually are not supposed to work. And in humanity's history, when they have, it was because they were either orphans or they had family debt and they were sent to some sort of workhouse or something.
Right.
So then
and
you have
those were regular jobs.
Right.
Too.
Yeah. Regular hard ass jobs.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have, vaudeville. Then you have Broadway. Then you have the silent era, and then movies. And, Shirley Temple is, of course, the big beacon in terms of child stardom. And then she went on to have this wonderful life as a diplomat. But it's when you also then have later on in my life, your contemporaries, your friends, Dana Plato. You have different people who their stories are tough and heartbreaking, but you get it. You totally get it. And so all of that, I kept going back to, oh no, my village deserves more than me deciding, oh, I don't want to live, or this is too hard, or I'm going to do drugs to take away the pain of feeling like I'm no longer wanted. That shit is hard to deal with when you're 11 and 12 and 13, that you go from being this cute kid, and if puberty is not kind to you, shit. What?
Yeah. I mean, that's...
What? And then you go past the awkward stages into young adulthood, and, it's like, if you decide, I don't want to act again, like some of the Little Rascals, right? Our gang, one of them decided to sell insurance. Can you imagine? And then somebody going, oh, didn't you used to be somebody? What?
Right. It was like, that happened recently too. Somebody was like, oh, was this from, it was from the Cosby Show. The husband of Sandra.
Yeah,
and they made
absolutely.
such a big deal that he was delivering pizza or something like that.
Absolutely.
The pressure.
And that's a grown ass man.
Right.
And was a grown ass man when he was on Cosby and filming and quote unquote famous or celebrity. Mm-hmm. Now, try to handle that type of disgusting perception when you're a child.
It really is. And when you think about it, the complexity of everything as a child actor, and it's really sad that it has to be like that. And then it explains a lot also.
Yeah, very much so.
So Dana was how much older? She was older than you, right?
Just a couple of years older.
But you knew her enough to when it happened to be seriously impacted by that.
Very much so. Very much so.
And there were probably there were drugs everywhere, right? But
it depends on what scene. I mean, not like at the studio,
right.
It's not like some of the older, celebrities where, you got your what do they call it? Your pusher, your supplier, in the parking lot. It's not like that.
There's a room behind the dining room set.
Right. Behind the cafeteria of Eastland. Right. There's our pusher.
He hangs out until Mrs. Garrett leaves.
Right. Oh my God, that's awful. But no.
Right. The point is you could have fallen into it.
The point is, yes, you definitely. And, again, going back to Todd, he had his struggle, his bout. He kicked its ass. He did time. It was a horrible time. But we're on the other side.
I don't think people realize it either that Todd's been clean for so long.
Exactly.
It's like they have not forgotten. They still think he's either using drugs, in prison, or dead. Yeah. Which is not true, any of them.
Let me tell you something. When we did live in front of a studio audience, and they did Diff'rent Strokes and Facts of Life, and when they had us come out, the original
At
cast
the end,
members
yeah.
at the end. And they introduced the cast of, they introduced the cast of Diff'rent Strokes, and Todd was the only one that came out. Because I know, because I was there, I lived it with him. And that of everybody, that's literally the last man standing. I went behind those audience bleachers and I cried like I was being beaten with a skillet. I mean, I could not hold it in because I know what it took for him to be able to walk through the remake of that door. So, yeah, it's hard. And so, yeah, it motivated me. Yeah. I'd be lying if I didn't say when I went to visit Todd down at LA County that there wasn't a part of me going, I love you, bro, but this ain't gonna be me. And you can say it, but shit, life will life you in a heartbeat. And so, yeah, it's motivating.
Yeah, I mean, wow, how motivating. I mean, you took something that was so challenging, deeply, but you really managed to do something positive with it. No easy feat.
No, it's not. And for the longest time, I would kind of brush aside the work that I do to have this be my testimony. Yes, I'm very blessed. Yes, I have an incredible village. Yes, I have an enormous amount of support and love. But there are times when it's still just me. And it's me that has to still wake up and put one foot in front of the other and all of that. And I just recently got to a place of going, hey, girl, hell yeah. You are an it girl. You are on fire. Absolutely. You did that thing. And not that it's not, it's something that I started calling bold humility. Because yeah, I'm humble and that's what I was taught. But I'm not going to shy away from the work that I've had to do to be here.
Mm-hmm.
And not just here being famous, still in new blessings. But I'm above ground.
What are you feeling right now? I feel emotions. Deep ones.
It's a lot of work, but it's worth it. It is so worth it. And I don't just say that because of, the easy stuff, my children or my family or whatever. I say that because I love my life and I love living and being here and being a part of the things that I am a part of and loving the people that I love and who love me. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, took a lot to be here.
Yes.
My guess is you sometimes just try to just keep it going.
Keep going. Yes, thank you.
Keep going.
Yeah.
And so there isn't time that you give yourself maybe to feel this.
Yeah.
And to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
But I really do think it's important for you to feel it and acknowledge it.
Yeah. The tagline for my retreats is give yourself permission to be well. And it came from, first part of it came from give yourself permission. Because as an actor, you're always taught, and then as a director, you're always taught to tell and encourage the actors to give yourself permission to go there.
Right.
Give yourself permission to go there. And, not censoring yourself And when I started down this path, it became, well, give myself permission. And that was such a springboard. Give myself permission to live or to laugh or to dance or to create or to be pissed off, be angry. Give myself permission. And it just became something that was it was liberating. There are spaces that I'm finding that I still have to give myself permission. This apparently is one of them.
I was just going to say, you need to give yourself permission to acknowledge what you've done, because it's big and it was a long time in the making. And yeah, give yourself permission for that.
Yeah. I did a meditation course at the top of the year. And one of the days, it was a 31-day challenge. And one of the topics was, tell yourself, thank you for getting us here. And I have this coffee mug that's chalkboard surface. And so I try to write stuff on it. And I wrote that on the coffee mug that day. Thank you for getting us here. And apparently I haven't thanked myself again.
Can you please start thanking yourself?
Yeah.
You know, you're thanking everybody else.
Yeah.
But you do need to thank yourself too.
Yeah.
And boy, did you get here.
Yeah. I think I was talking with a friend of mine who's a meditation influencer, and we were talking about my almost discomfort with being content, because I feel like even now, be present, but you're always still, well, I have to make sure the next thing is in place. And the next thing is in place. And so I felt like if I'm content, then I'm not actively getting either ready for the next thing or putting things in place for the next thing to be manifested and executed.
Right. But it's the balancing again. Yes, it's the pull.
Yeah.
Because both. And maybe it is a little bit less of contentment to still continue on the path that you're in. Maybe it doesn't have to be 90%. And that's okay too. And you can be comfortable with feeling that way, as long as it's not discontent per se.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's you don't have to always strive for happiness. Because that's not the only thing that there is out there.
Totally agree.
Yeah. And I think sometimes that is a fast track to not being happy.
Oh my God, yes.
So okay. So maybe you're not
being on a runaway freight train.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So maybe you don't need to be, 90% content. It's okay. It's whatever your number is.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's like a sleep number mattress.
Right. I don't have one, but I do have a good friend who does. And yes, I know what you're talking about. Do you have one?
Right. No, my mother does.
Okay.
My mom and dad do, and that's their, but it's like you said, that number, but it goes back to when I said earlier, it's not balance, is not equal parts to all the aspects.
Right.
Sometimes it's whatever the number is that works for you in that moment.
What are some of the other things that you need to give yourself permission to do? That you're still working on?
I've been told that I need to give myself permission to have more grace for myself. I can be very hard on myself. I have a certain expectation from myself in certain ways, in certain spaces, when I'm on set, when I'm, in mom mode, when I'm as an entrepreneur. When I'm wearing all these different hats, I have a certain expectation. I have a very high bar for myself, very high bar, full of marvelous details, that kind of creates the trajectory to that bar. And so when I am not meeting it, I can be very hard on myself, not to a point of you need some help, girl. But just being able to do that check in on myself, like, okay, it's all right, and I've gotten better, definitely, but there are times when it's like, ugh.
Yeah, it's like pulling away and seeing the bigger picture.
Yeah, you got to zoom out.
You're always going up,
mm-hmm.
but you're sometimes, if you don't feel it's happening right in that moment,
right,
you may beat yourself up about it.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't do this.
Yeah.
I didn't get this done.
Yeah.
And I've let go of the idea of like lists. I mean, they're helpful, don't get me wrong, and they help me to stay, quasi-organized and all of that. Cut to Kim looking at her team member, her publicist, who's like, whatever. But I've gotten better again, but it is, there are times when I feel like it can get a little bit more, than others. And I just have to take a deep breath. I'm very intentional about breath and learning more about how to breathe. And the value of sacred breath. Sacred breath was a phrase that I started really embracing during the pandemic, because literally breath was so damn sacred at that time. And being able to, then zoom out and go, okay, no, it's not just in a pandemic or a lockdown. It's literally what is needed to stay here and honoring it as sacred. So understanding that it is very important, and cleansing breath is not just some it's not woo at all. Yeah,
no,
exactly.
It's real. It's connected.
It's very real. And
brain, your mind, and your body.
Absolutely. And so that has helped me tremendously.
Okay, so we're running out of time.
Okay,
so I'm gonna have to rapid
this fire.
up.
Let's go.
And no rapid fire.
Okay.
Just wrap it up, because rapid fire feels a little stressful, and I'm not here to stress you out. Let's relax. Let's stay relaxed. So, but I do want to mention to everybody what your wellness, your retreat is all about. So. How about a minute about that? Sure.
So Refresh Retreat by KF. Those are some really special words that I'm very excited about. It started last year at the end of the year. The writers, our industry was on strike. And I was like, well, what I'm going to do, because I'm not just going to sit around and wait for them to say, okay, we're not striking no more. And so.
In true Kim fashion.
But this is right.
It is so you.
It is so me. And so in September, I went to this beautiful resort and at Labor Day. And I went for a few days. And then I was like, I should do a retreat here. Now, it's a quick sidebar. I ain't never been on no wellness retreat.
You've never even been a guest at one. Or seen one, like if you were staying at a hotel?
Never. Right. Never had. No, I just knew.
Also very Kim. It works still.
Totally
why
so Kim.
Who cares?
Well, yeah, exactly. And it's I want to do a wellness retreat. Don't know what that means. Thankfully, my aunt Pat, I yanked her out of retirement, and I used the word yank intentionally because she was very happily retired from being a certified meeting planner, and especially with a 20-year career at Mattel. And I was like, I want to do a wellness retreat. I have a great resort, and they said yes, and they want to partner with me. And so, could you help me? So she became my event planner. And we put together these great graphics, immediately got a website going, and I started reaching out to wellness influencers and people that I either followed or knew their journeys and things. And we did a wellness retreat literally 3 months later. And people were like, who does that? How does that even happen?
Fields does that.
And the people who were there, we had somebody come in from Australia, somebody from Hawaii, New York, Virginia, Tennessee, and they were like, wait, what? and it was so much fun. And that was the thing. I just kept going off of, well, what would I like to do at a wellness retreat? And I don't want wellness to feel that it's something that I can't sustain. Mm-hmm. It's something that I can't access, or it's something that is so difficult that it's a chore. And then it becomes something else I got to do for myself. And so I just kind of put all those things in a bottle and corked it and had lightning in a bottle, I guess. So the resort said, we'd like for you to do 4 retreats a year. I was like,
4 a year?
Yeah.
Amazing.
So now I'm like, hey, listen, we can do maybe 2 a year, because no. So now we've got one in June, spring into summer edition. And people can find out all about it at refreshretreatbykf.com. But we do a sound bath. We do this wonderful nature walk that's in this beautiful lakeside, mountainside environment, acres and acres of this wooded environment that's just beautiful. And you have a lot of fun. We have a dance party. We have mixology tutorials. We have meditation. I don't have people come in and do keynote addresses. We do fireside and lakeside conversations, much like this. I think it's just more engaging. I wanted people to feel like they were in immersive experiences. And so I curate all of the itinerary, the spaces, the menus, the refreshing friends, the entertainment, everything. So yeah, and in my spare time I just put on a retreat.
Right. So you are so you, and it's what makes you. I mean, these are the things, right? All of our assets are also, I'm not going to call them flaws, but they have liabilities, I guess.
Yeah.
So there are some liabilities, but they're also like part of the asset.
Sure.
So it's a matter of finding your number.
Absolutely.
Or your numbers.
Yep.
And just like holding the pole.
Yeah, very much
and,
so.
And you're a beautiful person, and you should be being you in all of those wonderful ways that make you happy as you.
Well, like attracts like. And so you seeing that, I recognize that in you. And so I recognize that. And so there's that kind of kindred spirit vibe going on, you know.
Totally.
So, I mean, like when your request came through, I was like, oh, yeah, of course. We had so much fun. I still have pictures. That great Edith Head quote that's on there.
You remember.
Of course I do.
I was just showing Michelle the pictures too, and you had the red hair at the time.
And I had the red outfit. Absolutely. Yes. We had a great
time.
Absolutely. But that's you. I mean, you're light and light. We're putting our light together. Absolutely. And the luminance is just fantastic.
Yeah, I love light.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm drawn to it, and I'm all about that. Yeah. So I think this is a perfect place to close.
I think so.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you so much.
Until next time.
Until you come and retreat with us.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you.